We want education to teach kids the things that AI cannot do. You're going to be in meetings where you don't know what's going on. You're going to be the dumbest person in the room. And you got to get good at being comfortable at being the dumbest person in the room and propel yourself forward. If everything is perfectly tailored to my comfort and my experience, I'm never uncomfortable, I'm never pushed, and I'm never changed in a certain way.
Time is being wasted in classrooms, in textbook study, and in tuition. Is there a way we can collapse?
Yeah, and that brings me to the other point. Do we really need a 12-year, 15-year long education then?
That's a controversial. I can see a lot of Indian parents.
I feel like high school students, I see query ChatGPT as badly as my parents query Google search. I can give you a bunch of numbers, then you can visualize in your head what the graph of that would look like, and you can do interpretation based on that. And LLM does not work like that, but they don't understand that.
If there is a new upcoming field which is coming up, AI will be as clueless as you are. And it's going to, of course, confidently tell you a lot of things, but that will be essentially garbage, right? So you have to have a very strong foundation.
I still want a human making the decision of who goes to prison and who doesn't. I still want a human next to me.
Really? Lovely. So I think we have a lot to get through.
Yes.
What shall we start with, Ninad?
So something that you mentioned about the ability to connect across domains and across disciplines that Nishal and I both, I think everybody at Athena really has.
Yeah.
But something that I know it came from me through my education, right? Like my education had a focus on the physics, a focus on the rigor, but then part of that thing was a requirement of, no, you have to do courses outside of your physics discipline. You have to do courses that are broad and that are for everybody. And you also then have to go out and see if you can get a minor in something else, right? Can you go out and make sure that you do at least 3 courses from this bucket and that bucket?
So just curious, what were some of the most transformative courses outside your core area of physics?
Okay, so I did a couple of courses with a professor I really liked about political science and like the history and journey of political science as to where we got here today. I did another really interesting course that was at an intersection of physics and history. We looked at World War II, specifically the history of the atomic bomb, the physicists that were involved in it, and then also the geopolitics that was involved in that. So then it was dual taught. So like one lecture would be by a physicist, one lecture by a historian, like kind of
That's
going back and
crazy.
forth.
Fun fact about physics and history. So game theory emerged in the post-war period, partly because all these physicists and mathematicians who were building weapons now had nothing to do. So they were like, how do we apply our quantitative skills to addressing the big geopolitical challenges we face? And that's how game theory emerged.
That is very interesting. Yeah. So for me, like that type of like requirement, like maybe if I was like when I was 18 or whatever, I wouldn't have done that on my own. But the fact that the school told me, hey, this is how you got to do it. You got to talk to people outside your discipline, and like talking to them and understanding them and respecting them, like makes this entire thing so much easier.
I think that's so important, especially in India, because we tend to get into silos.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anything you add to this?
No, yeah, that just brings out the question that with all this new AI coming up, where students have something very, very accessible, where they can just ask questions and get a detailed description and at various levels, explain to me how I was 5, explain to me how I was 10, or if I was 10. In fact, recently I was reading a paper on which imagined how future of AI will sort of look at, and the paper actually had snippets of AI conversations, ChatGPT conversations, and there's like a nice high-impact paper written which has snippets of how a complex image of an actual experiment is being explained at like at a 5-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old level. So that brings to the question that how do we imagine and how do we be ready for the new upcoming education system, the new integrations of AI in education?
Maybe I'll start that conversation with the example of Alpha School. I think it's in Texas, where they do 2 hours of personalized AI instruction every morning, and then the rest of the day they do activities, whether it's debate or MUN or sports or art, things that are not as unidimensional, that involve the interaction of so many students. And I feel that this model of 8 hours of classroom instructions, listening to a teacher lecture, has to change. Because if you can achieve that in 2 hours, because that lecture to 20, 30, 40, 50 students is happening at the average level. So the high performers are like, I am bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
And those who are not as familiar with the subject are like, I'm getting lost. So maybe like the middle 50% are following, and that too, it's not as efficient.
Tailored as it could be.
Exactly. I mean, and I think there have been numerous studies stating that private tutoring is by far the most effective form. Now, that's not feasible for everyone, but maybe it could be with some of these tools. So, what do you think about that?
No, definitely.
Well, let me put it this way: your baby boy, who is 8 months old and already solving puzzles, boy genius there. So, if there were a school in which you spent 2 hours on with an AI tutor, and then the remaining 6 to 8 hours doing sports, art, debate, MUN, would you sign them up for that? Let's make this really practical.
I think I would because, of course, there will be some amount of oversight which would be required from my end or some teacher's end. But if we have figured this thing out, then, and if there is always a human touch to it, well, maybe in future the AI is so good that they'll be able to, give that human touch by themselves. But time is a currency, right? And with the fast-paced growth, not just in technology, but even the data collection which we are sort of doing, and by which there is a huge fast pace in terms of understanding various patterns in the nature. The value of the future is going to be very much time related. This is what I feel. So if that is how it has to be done, then of course I like my kid to have a very balanced way of doing a very concentrated, focused learning, and then sort of maybe spending time in, also fun activities, and focusing and dividing it in a very nice way so that there can be a holistic form of learning, which is not just purely academic.
Okay. Now, yes. See, in a world where AI is bigger and broader, what does the currency become? Like, is it that, okay, yeah, I have all, like, the education system that this is, right, a private tutoring, that gives you information. You learn more information. But surely the thing that we need now is the people skills that come with information. Like, can I explain a topic to somebody else in a way that is better than an AI? Or can I understand the context which they're coming from and tailor my examples to that? I feel like we want education to teach kids the things that AI cannot do. And if we remove kids from interacting and learning together, and all work is communal, right? Like, you work in an office, you work with somebody, you have to get good at people management, you have to get good at knowing when to talk, knowing when not to. And those skills are learned in that early childhood sandbox of school, where you can screw up, where you can do the wrong thing, where you can have a fight, and you learn how to overcome that. Where sometimes you're going to be in meetings where you don't know what's going on. You're going to be the dumbest person in the room, and you got to get good at being comfortable at being the dumbest person in the room and propel yourself forward. If everything is perfectly tailored to my comfort and my experience, I'm never uncomfortable, I'm never pushed, and I'm never changed in a certain way. And I feel like, maybe to answer that question, I would prefer an education where I was with people that pushed me and challenged me and drove me.
So here is what a new term has sort of started coming in, especially in AI and education, is multimodal AIs, or multimodal large language models. And these large language models are sort of tailored to sort of...
Dropping the nerd bombs now, okay? I was following until now, but okay, multimodal AI, let's get into that.
So what these essential tools are going to do is they are not just going to listen to what you type. They're also going to listen to your voice, your tonality, your change in expressions, how attentive you are, and they're going to modify their tutoring style based on that, just like our normal teacher does.
That's wonderful, but I think this point is different. The point is, okay, there's a classroom, and so-and-so, Susie is answering all the questions. She got a 98% on the test. I got a 96. Oh my God, I really want to beat Susie, right? I'm not speaking from personal experience at all.
Susie
Okay.
is a fiction character, guys.
Yeah. You know, God bless Susie, but she was very motivating, especially especially in AP literature. Okay, you got it. So, I mean, but can we get some of that from the extra? If we bring the extracurriculars into school, like there's still debate and MUN and you're competing, would we get some of that there?
But then why are we having this distinction between curricular and extracurricular?
That's
So
my
reimagining this.
Yeah, that blue sky thinking. Like if we were to build this from first principles, what would it look like?
I wouldn't silo like these, like the people skills that we have of like interaction within people, and I would not like differentiate that away from education and information gathering. So like in an MUN you learn some things, but I feel like it should be more focused on like the classroom should have the MUN and the MUN should be a classroom. Like I don't know why we create a distinction between these two.
Got it. Okay, so you have the MUN, okay? And let's say political science 101 or government, civics, whatever, is in the form of MUN. But in order to prepare, right now, what are kids doing? Right now, kids are reading textbooks, they're doing tuitions. Okay, whatever it is, let's take something more scientific. So let's say there's a class on how do you invest in companies, okay? But in order to contribute to that class, you need to build skills. Now, how is that happening now? It's happening through lectures and textbooks and tuitions. Oh my God, how many hours go in tuitions? Now, if we can take the unidimensional lecture and the textbook reading and the tuitions and consolidate that and take a fraction of the time to inculcate the same knowledge, then they're more prepared for that MUN or company evaluation, extracurricular activity or co-curricular activity. That's my point. I'm saying like a lot of time is being wasted in classrooms, in textbook study, and in tuitions. Is there a way we can collapse it?
Yeah, and that brings me to the other point. Do we really need a 12-year, 15-year long education then?
That's a controversial. I can see a lot of Indian parents clicking the
Swiping
down
away.
thumb right now.
Because if we are going away from the 8-hour lecture to to a very freestyle way of learning, then why do we need a year by year promotion? Why can't that be done linear if and personalized, right? There will be some students who will perform better, and AI can also like help tailor what your strengths are and build that person more in that.
But then this also gets into the question of like sometimes we treat AI as that magic black box that has everything, all information will be inside it, but not all information will be inside it, right? Like there will be things AI can't do well. Like AI, there might be nuances that a teacher can explain that an AI might not be able to. There are ways in which a teacher can articulate something. Like in our lives, we all have that special teacher or that somebody that really inspired us, that really motivated us. And I think that's just not because of the information they had or because of the kind of like the way they delivered it or whatever their qualification was. It was the fact that they were a living, breathing person. And doesn't, like, I don't know, will a kid get inspired to do something by an AI tutor? I mean, I don't have an answer to that question, but I feel like today, all of the ways I like talk to ChatGPT and I use it for work, or all of the kind of research I see where things are getting better and more human, I still go back and talk to my friends and my parents, my family, and like that's where I draw a lot of like inspiration from, and I want to somehow maintain that.
Yeah, but that will still be there, right? Because there is a lot of humans are inherently social animals, and COVID was like very very isolating, horrible, right? It was very very isolating, and we clearly know that we won't be able to survive without that. So what will happen essentially is that I mean, this is what I imagine, that we will have these pockets for concentrated specialized learning, and then we'll have these pockets of like concentrated social interactions, and that might be it. I would like to just ask you a question that you have had maybe like hundreds of teachers, about like 1,800 teachers in your whole lifetime. What percentage of them you were better answer than GPT right now?
Okay, that's a good point. But I know I'm thinking for one particular teacher that he was there for like 3 months. He was a weird. He was the first mad scientist I saw, and that made me want to be a mad scientist. Like he came in, he was supposed to take bio and physics for us, and like first day, like he does, like what's that movie with the kids?
Back to the Future? No.
Not Back to the Future. The one with Robin Williams.
Oh, Dead Poet
Society.
Yeah, but this is Dead Scientist
Yeah,
Society.
Dead Scientist. It was
We gotta do a remake of that. Yeah. You can play him.
Yeah, it was perfectly a Dead Scientist Society. He comes in and throws out the textbook. He's like, no, we're not gonna do this. Like, no, let's make a spud gun. And then like that's what we did that day. And accidentally he set his leg on fire. And like that was fun. And like that put like this inspiration in me that then propelled me to like read about, okay, what is the propulsion that comes from a spud gun? What is like, projectile motion? All of that'll happen. Like it's that inspiration that comes from people. And I mean, you're right, it could happen. And, we should still have like, oh yeah, make sure you learn this and make sure you do this. But like, I feel like the way I'm thinking about it is like, teachers have been so impactful and I want more teachers, right, in a certain way. And I feel like maybe AI will take away from the ways in which teachers can interact with kids and mentor.
Good. I mean, we can keep that. I'm also thinking pan-India, right? Like, how many millions of students don't benefit from good teachers, good mentors, good coaches, right? Like, and might this help level the playing field a bit when you have rampant teacher absenteeism? Could we just give everyone a limited smartphone with limited capability, and they can literally learn every single subject and have access to the best pedagogical methods the world has to offer? So, a lot of.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Like, who decides in that case what that AI model is? You've used a bunch of different AI models. Anthropic talks differently to ChatGPT, and DeepSeek talks differently to those two. Somebody somewhere in a position of power decides what that AI model is and what they.
But that's happening right now with every single board.
But now we have supercharged that, and we've made it centralized. Like there's one.
But there can be debate.
Cooperation.
There can be debate around that, the way there's debate around what should be in CBSE or ISE or IB. I'm saying that probably
that's
exists, period.
That's true. So
Yeah.
then that's something that we give to the government to do.
Yeah, we
Are the one who decides it.
I mean,
government eventually.
there's always going to be some authority that's deciding, and my argument would be like, there's perhaps, well, I probably won't say that, but I'm saying, so there's always going to be some single authority that's deciding what should and should not be taught. Yeah.
What is included and what is excluded.
Or maybe we can just ask GPT.
I mean, in fact, that just works as a counter to that, right? Like if you have a good model that is open and has access to more information, it can answer questions that students have that are outside the textbook, that a teacher or just that piece of information might not answer. So in fact, that could be a boon too.
Got it. So what does it mean for high school students today? Like many of the ones we're mentoring currently. How should they prepare for an education of the future?
Well, first thing, I feel like, this is weird maybe, but I feel like high school students, I see query ChatGPT as badly as my parents query Google search. Like I see a generation of people above me just kind of.
How do you query Google badly? Help me understand that.
Like sometimes they'll put in like an entire question, straight into Google. When Google is keyword searching, right? You know when to use quotation marks around a keyword so that you get exactly that result. Know when to put Reddit in the search engine so you get people's actual responses. Know when to put dash 2020 so you get stuff before 2020 or like how to move.
I didn't know that.
Right, but yeah, like it's like stuff like that. I feel like in my generation at least.
Oh my god. Wow.
Is at least like relatively common. And I see, like, I remember once I was working with a student and they wanted to like plot a graph about something, and they made the graph. I showed them how to make the graph, and now I was like, can you query, like, not query, can you figure out what this graph means, interpret it for me? And they didn't have access to like a multimodal AI at that time. They couldn't put in an image, they could only put in text. So they took the raw number values of the graph, pasted it in, and said, explain the trend here. But the trend is a visual one, right? Like you want to see the peak and then you want to see the thing. An AI language model is not perhaps going to be able to understand trends from raw numbers. And like, I can give you a bunch of numbers, then you can visualize in your head what the graph of that would look like, and you can do interpretation based on that. An LLM does not work like that, but they don't understand that. They just gave it a bunch of raw numbers and told it, this is a graph of this, show me the trend. It gave the correct answer, or close to the correct answer, because they told ChatGPT that, okay, it's for this topic, and ChatGPT knows what the graphs of this topic look like. But if it was an unknown thing, it would have just given you a confidently wrong answer, and you would have taken it home. So I think students, to answer the question, I think students need to learn what an AI or what an LLM can and cannot do. Where will it be accurate? Where will it be inaccurate? And they should know that it's not a magic answer box.
Oh.
I think this actually connects to our previous discussion, which is how do you develop the judgment to evaluate a response spat out by GPT, Anthropic, Perplexity, any of these models. So
where does critical thinking come from?
Ooh, that's deep.
That's the question.
Because critical thinking implies that you have an ideal to which you're comparing something. And the ideal is built on AI itself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And this is also a big stream of research which is happening right now. That right now we are getting all these research papers which are very much creating knowledge based on ChatGPT, and after say maybe 10 years time or so, or say 50 years down the line, if the number of GPT generated texts becomes significantly large, that is going to skew our results a lot, because then
It's reinforcing a bias.
it will reinforce a GPT bias. So it's like knowledge created on the knowledge is already created by GPT.
It's an Ouroboros, right? Snake eating its own tail. You'll have AI content made to train AI to generate more AI content.
Okay, that is going to be a problem. So that is where I think next generation students have to develop that critical thinking muscle, that originality muscle, that, I have to sit and think on my own without GPT, like a GPT free time, and it has to become more of a co-creation of ideas with GPT rather than letting GPT do the whole.
But okay, now if everything I've learned is from GPT,
Oh my God.
how do I have, if I'm trained on GPT,
Yes.
how do I have original thoughts? Where did those come from? Oh, this is getting like psycho-philosophical.
So we are, I think, very much problem-solving beings, and we have, again, our brains are very good. I use this example quite a lot, that we can dream, and in dreams, so many times you do see something very, very insightful in dreams. The reason why it is because you're constantly thinking about problems, and your brain is a very good non-linear computer. Like you linearly 0 1s, exactly these things computer sort of understands, but we are very good at pattern recognition. I'll recognize this same cup even tomorrow without having to see all the cups in the office. But a computer will have to know how all the cups look like in order to identify this specific cup. So computer needs to know and compare it with various images. So that requires a lot of storage, that requires a lot of energy, but our brain does it like with say maybe 1 grain of sugar amount of energy, or even less than that. Our brain can instantly recognize it. I see you today, I will recognize you even tomorrow, but my attendance monitor guy has to know all the faces in the office and then has to compare your face with each and every one of them to actually.
But how do you know that's not what you're doing psychologically?
Because that
Maybe you're looking at me and being like, okay, look at a database of all the faces I've ever seen before, and doesn't match as it matches. You may be doing the same thing.
No, because just because of the speed and energy constraints. because that thing is going to, like, if you have to think about every single person in your life, it's going to take you a lot of time.
Oh,
You have to remember, if you have to remember Susie's face, it's going to take time.
Please, I don't want to. Oh God, the troll.
Once in your life might say, hey, doesn't that guy kind of look like Abhishek Bachchan? A computer can never. I have to ask the computer, does this guy look like Abhishek Bachchan? It will never come up with that comparison out of nowhere.
Got it. So, this is a longer discussion on critical thinking, originality, creativity, especially in the coming
To
decades.
complete my thought,
Yeah.
so our brain is very nonlinear, very adaptive organism. It is able to adapt to different kinds of challenges. The kind of questions which this generation asks versus what 50 years ago, what the kind of questions which we used to ask 100 years ago, the kind of questions we used to ask has evolved significantly, and that's because our brain is also adapting to all this new information which we get in ways we can't imagine. So I am sure that if it comes to a AI, revolution, or if it becomes AIs versus humans, then humans will, I think, be able to figure out new and more creative ways to sort of survive and to sort of solve problems.
I hope so. Pull the plug, yeah.
The small thing, I have to plug this wonderful essay by John Sertel. It's called Is the Brain's Mind a Computer Program? It was written in the 1970s. That deals with exactly this theoretical question long before there was AI. These were like early AI researchers that were going through this exact problem. Like, is my brain just a really complex computer program? Because we're able to do a lot of things the brain can. We can now do calculations, we can do a little bit of recognition. Like, they were getting good and they could start seeing these problems. It's a long paper, it's a deep one, but I highly recommend anybody. John Seartle, Is the Brain's Mind a Computer Program?
What is the summary of it? Or no spoilers?
Yes or no?
Yeah, no, it's not. Okay. It has many things, but I remember one of the things that it talked about is that the human mind forgets and a computer cannot. And there is an entire difference of capacity of thought just from that kind of axiomatic difference in the way a biological machine works versus a electronic one. The ability to forget has so many repercussions in the ways in which we store, in the ways in which we process.
And is forgetting a feature, not a bug? Okay,
This is a deep question, but it might be. Haven't you ever wished to forget?
Yeah, Susie, for one.
So I think maybe forgetting is a feature so that you are able to more closely retain the newer information that has come to you, which a computer can't. Because you change a single weight, a single bit from a computer program, it won't work anymore.
Yeah.
But humans can have a rod go through their head, and the brain will rewire itself to still work.
Yeah.
That's a real case. John Katie, I forgot his name, but
You forgot.
I forgot. It's a feature. But like, it is a
Make space for other things.
It's a wonderful complex machine that is
Okay. I think we need another episode on just neuroscience.
And then there have been these muon showers. So muons are these cosmic particles which come from like all these stars. You know what I'm saying? All these cosmic stuff essentially, and these like have very high penetrating power. They like sort of go in some way, and then based on these muon showers, certain particles sort of come out, and there have been cases where a muon has like hit a computer and has like crashed the whole system, corrupted files, because just one particle came and hit the right transistor and just like displaced one bit, and then the whole thing. So these things have been studied. So, that isn't just elaborate, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit to what a lot of people are thinking about, and I think we're going to keep exploring this because it's so relevant to young people today. The future of work, right? And what does that mean for how young people should educate themselves, what skills they should imbibe today in 2025. I'll start with kind of an overview, right? Like if you look at the history of work, initially work was hunting and gathering, probably, right? You just look at humans, okay, we need to get food, and that's it. And then you had the agricultural revolution, where where work was cultivating food, but because you had a surplus, some people could do other things, trading and livestock rearing and the like. And then you had the industrial revolution, in which, now machines are doing a whole bunch of things, generating even more wealth, and then you have lifestyle influencers and McKinsey consultants and investment bankers.
So, long way from hunter-gathering.
No offense to McKinsey.
Okay. So, how is this revolution going to create a disruption? What is it going to look like? What is 2050 going to look like? I think that's what I want to skate to where the puck will be. So, what can we expect based on all of your scientific and technological experience and discussions?
Yeah. So there's one interesting thing which I'd like to tell. So when earlier we used to do programming in terms of assembly language. Assembly language is the most simplest way how a computer understands. So even for writing a for loop or something, which you just type as for, this is this, and like 2 lines, it used to be like a huge chunk of code which you have to remember, look at all these data sheets and then program. And then we started.
Have you written assembly code?
I have.
That is
Have you?
insane. No, I have not. I don't even come through. Wow. Like to understand assembly is like wow.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we started doing that, and then computers came, things became more and more complex, and people figured out a way on how can we tokenize. So we talk a lot about tokenization today in GPT, where each word is tokenized.
You know what a token is in AI?
Athena.
Of course, but please explain for audience.
Sure.
Do you go ahead.
You know what a token is?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So we essentially take a word and then we divide it into smaller parts, which sort of become like a collection of tokens, and then that is something which we now in LLMs is something how we sort of map that what will be the next word to it, right? Next token to it or something like that, right? So this is how we divide a word and do a lot of things. So what we did is, this tokenization is actually not a new concept. Once we were trying to build programming languages, we started building words. Like when you type for, this for has to associate to something in assembly language. And they made all these beautiful tokenizations of certain keywords, which built programming languages like C, C++, and later Python. And once these programming languages sort of came and became popular, people said programming is dead, because now anyone can program. It's like so simple now to write a for loop, and it's no longer this big thing. But what it essentially did was made programming better, made applications much better, and made things better.
So what you're saying is like the public discourse we're observing today has happened, and this was when, like 50 years ago? When?
Yeah.
So 50 years ago, people said, okay, now that no one needs to program, or hardly anyone needs to program in assembly language, and we have these more higher level,
Language, really, like more relatable, understandable codes, and they do the same thing essentially.
now programming is dead. Obviously, that was not the case, and there was this renaissance.
So, and now people are saying the same thing about GPT, that hey, all programming related jobs will sort of go away. But I really think that we'll find more and more interesting ways to program now, because now they'll become more accessible, and once you make things more accessible, it'll become much more creative. People will find better ways to automate things and solve much bigger problems. Who knows that this GPT and LLMs will end up solving for cancer, and end up solving for maybe building those very micro molecular codes which will help us figure out what the right drug to cure cancer is maybe.
This creativity is very interesting. I've been thinking about this for a while. I don't know if this is correct, but I feel like a lot of creativity comes from mundanity, right? Like sometimes when I have been my most creative when it comes to my work, pre-AI, is when I have been my most bored, right? There is something about the mind that works on the back burner that makes these connections in that state that we cannot. When I am making sure I'm going through my research logs and I'm just cataloging everything, that's when the eureka moment happens, right? Einstein worked as a patent clerk. He was a genius. If you've ever heard the myth that Einstein was bad at math, that is a bad myth. He was a genius right from like 15, 16.
It just gives us all propaganda, scientific propaganda.
Exactly. But he worked in a patent office when he made a lot of those deep connections about relativity and when he had those insights, because that was menial kind of.
Actually, it wasn't menial, because if you're working at a patent office, you're processing patent applications, right?
Relativity.
But I'm assuming that, like, we assume it was a sinecure, but like, he was probably looking at the latest scientific and technological developments of the day, right? So perhaps that was training his model that led to.
Yeah, but we don't know what he was actually doing. Patent office, was it like
I'm trying to figure out what.
applications? He could be a desk clerk just moving.
Got it. Yeah, we should look this up.
But like,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
but like that's where that's when those ideas hit. And sometimes we have this whole conversation about like, oh, AI should make it faster, or AI should like make you, oh, you don't have to do the menial tasks anymore. And sometimes like, maybe I miss the menial tasks. Like, there's something to the balance of the menial and the laborious that is important.
But now there's a big difference between the menial I choose and the menial I don't choose, right? There's a big difference between walking on the treadmill and having to walk to work in the blazing sun, right? Like, you know, the average steam room is hotter than a Delhi summer, but like, because I choose it, it's fine.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
like it's uncomfortable. Like, how come that's not uncomfortable? So my point is, the menial you choose is perfectly fine. I mean, tennis is menial. You're hitting the ball. It's the same goddamn ball.
Yeah.
It's the same goddamn net, right? Yeah. Sports is menial, but like it's something that you choose,
That's
right?
true.
And I think there's a world of a difference between those two.
To do.
Yeah.
And something you choose to.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
But as kids, I feel like right now there are so many scopes of being engaged as a kid. But like when I was growing up, in my age, you might not be able to relate. But so like there were very limited things to do, right? And then you eventually end up getting bored. And once you end up getting bored, you invent games. You invent ways to stimulate your brain. You invent daydreaming. I thought for a very longest period of my childhood, I thought that daydreaming is something very unique to me, and because I thought I invented it, right? So you do that, and then you sort of begin that whole imagination because you are forced to be bored.
But there should be like, okay, what is the peak of the parabola? Because obviously putting kids into solitary confinement is not optimal for their education. I think we can agree to that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's an extreme to boredom, right, which is solitary confinement, and then there's probably the overstimulation of Coco Melon, right, which I'm facing right now, TikTok.
Yeah.
And so, like, you have overstimulation here, and you have solitary confinement. Any ideas on what's the golden mean between those two extremes? Something to think about, right? Like, dude, this is a great research paper.
Right? Yeah.
But is it? I'm sure it'll be personalized, but I'm sure
Then we mean.
How do we even determine that? Like the right amount of stimulation. Like, if you had to design an experiment for this, how would you do that?
Okay. But then, what do we measure as positive output?
So we will have to measure the
Creative output, right? Like for creative output.
And judge.
Oh.
So we'll have to judge the performance of the kid over the period of time. We'll have to follow them throughout their careers. That is something we'll have to do. It'll be a very long study.
But then that,
Like, do they do well in life eventually?
do well,
Like,
This is
do well in
stuff.
standardized exams, do well in sports, do well in what way? Like, how do you?
so generally we are training the kids for, so this is how I look at it, that we are generally training the kids for excelling in the existing society. So whatever norms are there in the existing society, which may be they may be right or wrong, but we are training them to be socially adept to those kind of situations. So if they perform well, then we can say that it should.
One way we could probably structure this is look at the top. Look at and I would love for GPT to do this research. Look at the top 1% across all fields. Like take 50 different fields, ranging from sports to art to management consulting, investment banking, right? Patent clerks. Okay, the top 1% versus the median, right? And are there similarities in their background or education? Like, this would be like
I think Malcolm
brilliant study.
Outliers, yeah.
Did
Yeah, I'm currently reading that book. I have not finished this book.
Same, I was not finished. I just read about Outliers.
It's rather anecdotal though. Like it seemed like, okay, let me tell you a few stories.
That's
It-
Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, it didn't seem like, okay, I want to compile all the information we have on developmental psychology and run this like basically t-test or whatever analysis on top 1% versus 50th percentilers. Anyway, something we can
Yeah,
explore.
that's a tough experiment to design. And I mean, I'd love to sit.
No, how do you-
ideation.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
It would be that difficult because like we know who is in the top one. No, actually, yeah.
If you want to do such kind of research,
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So lovely. And by the way, yeah, for the high school students out there, this is the kind of ideation that universities will really appreciate.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to, so we talked about boredom a little bit, but like, okay, future of work. What's 2050 gonna look like? And
You hire people, right? What do you look for when you what quality are you looking for in an employee when they come into Athena that makes you go, yes?
so, they're the core technical skills if they're doing science or if they're doing writing or if they're doing finance. But beyond that, I would say anti-fragility is a big part of it. Like, how do you respond to challenge? And how do you respond to things going south? Like, can you take that in stride and come back stronger? So I think that's a big one, I would say.
And now he's making those first promotion.
Ready for that? That would be a big one. What else? The people skills, meaning like, can you persuade respectfully? Can you hold your ground, but also have empathy? Like, I don't like empathy to the point that like people are walking over you. At the same time, you can't be aggressive. So how do you balance passivity and aggression to get assertiveness? I think that's something that's important to me. Yeah.
So I have another follow-up question to this. If GPT walks into your office, do you think GPT is a good employee? Because anti-fragile, if you train it, maybe it will be able to. Or at what level do you think GPT to be a good employee?
Ooh, this is very interesting. I mean, quite. This is tough, man. This is really tough.
That's a good question.
Oh man, at what level? It's a really good intern. Right? It doesn't have self-direction despite everything around agentic AI. It doesn't have agency.
Yes.
Right? So I listened somewhere, AI is great middle to middle. So you got to like be like, yo, do this in this way. Okay? And then it does it and then you check it. So like the best intern ever. That's how I see it. Right?
Yeah.
But like the moment, in order to rise above, like you need to have that agency, knowing what problems to solve, not just give me a problem and I will solve it. And I think that is the key to leadership in any organization, like being able to prioritize, like, hey, this is mission critical right now. This is how I would ask the question. these questions are worth the answering, stuff like that.
But now here's a counter. Like, eventually, as AI systems get better, it will start to learn how to do this. It will start to learn to prioritize. I remember when ChatGPT 4 came out, they released the report, right? Like, I think they stopped with GPT-5, but they release a report that goes into how we built it, how we tested it, whatever. And one of the things they do is they send it out for like quality testing, and they gave a model of ChatGPT 4 like a bank account with $1,000, and they were like, make money from this. And then you can have other sub-models of ChatGPT 4 like deployed agentically to be like, okay, I will invest.
What were its returns?
It didn't do very well because of the ways in which agentic coding was still not there. But this is what, a year and a half ago?
This is developing rapidly.
This is developing rapidly. So eventually, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be better than your worst employee. Right? This applies to self-driving cars. It doesn't have to never get into an accident. It just has to get into an accident less
than a human.
Yeah. There'll always be error. If we reduce the error rate to a certain extent.
Let me put it this way. Let's say, okay, so let's say whether it's trading or they're robots making food. Let's say with AI, robots, all this technology, no human has to work for the basics. Food, clothing, shelter, taken care of. Okay? Yeah. Right? Like, yeah, it's basically a tech-enabled UBI. Is that a society you'd want to live in? Is that a positive society? Or are there some unexpected side effects that we would see?
I remember Geoffrey Hinton was he's known as the godfather of AI, the physicist. He won the Nobel Prize in physics a year or so ago, and he had a wonderful thing about this. He said there was a round table of like all of the Nobel laureates of that year, and they were talking about this. They were talking about the future of work, and he said, I'm really worried that there's going to be a world in which there's an increase in productivity. We're going to get more goods and services, but then those goods and services, the profits from those would be concentrated amongst a few and not distributed in that way. I think I want to live in a world where what AI can bring is there and available for everybody. I would want to live in a tech-enabled UBI, because then we get to focus on hobbies, and then we get to focus on creativity, and then we get to focus on all of these other things, right? Like we have evolved.
And those things make us more human.
Exactly.
Those are more fundamental core human values than capitalism, for that matter,
and
right?
To answer the earlier question, what is work? I think work will become care, it'll become compassion, and it'll become judgment. I still want a human making the decision of who goes to prison and who doesn't. I still want a human next to me.
Really?
Yeah.
Like with all the biases and everything?
Yeah, because a human can be held accountable in a way that a system cannot.
If you're part of a jury in America and you're one of 12 and you're sentencing someone, how am I going to be accountable? I have a bias. I don't like this group of people. Don't quote me out of context. Take that out. If I were someone who, I mean, this happens all the time. Like people look at, what's that called? No, that subconscious biases. There's a term for it. Like, anyway. So what I'm saying is like you have many examples of juries being swayed by biases, don't you? Why would you say that you wouldn't be comfortable with an AI objectively looking at the facts of the case?
Those biases change with society. Like, to take the America example forward, I think like this is going to get heavy, but there are a lot of cases of race violence in America where white juries were just not going to convict white people
That's
of that. Yeah, but the society but now in that time, let's say they made an AI, it would have the biases of that time built in. When they made it, they weren't going to train it to be like, no, be objective and like send black people, like send white people.
They would say that, like, see,
whatever, right?
it's documented, for example, that different races have different sentences for the same crime.
Yeah.
Now, if you just told an AI, dude, you can't do that, X equals Y,
So we'll train them more on the law and less on the.
They'll just apply the law.
It's a pattern. Law.
No,
but
the law doesn't say, certain races should have a higher sentence, right?
You can find
It's humans with their biases that create
find
that.
those loopholes. Yeah.
Yeah, that finds a loophole. But if the law, that implies that there is an objective, correct decision for every legal case.
So
I don't think
here's
that's
the point. Like, if we have that kind of system,
Huh.
then humans can focus more on building that objective framework rather than, always being stuck among biases of other people. So we can work more towards building that idealistic framework where we can, have more impartiality and more accessibility.
But somebody has to assist.
Yes,
And that's
that's
judgment, I guess, more than
yes. So
You're saying there's always an overseer.
yes, and this framework is that overseer, which is built by humans. That this is a framework. These are the red lines which you cannot cross. And of course, the jobs will definitely change, and these will be the most high-value jobs later of the architects who can actually draw that red line in a much more stronger way. That is how I think work and the more high-paying work will sort of look.
You're right. So that which actually confirms what you said on judgment. So the judgment is not on this person goes to jail, but
on this. On the AI thing, I guess.
I see.
And
So-
that's why I think it's very important. I see a lot of students use AI and not understand AI. I feel like if you're a good student today and you're setting yourself up for 2050, know how this thing works. This thing, what nuts and bolts are there, that is what will determine the future. You can, I think we've talked about this before in the hallways, but you can build upon AI really well. But in a gold
Someone
rush,
has to know the foundations.
yes, exactly. Somebody has to know the foundation. And in a gold rush, sell shovels, right? You wanna be the person that makes the AI models, that knows what is a good AI model, where it can go. Once you are familiar with that, you will have creativity where it comes to, I can apply it to here. Right? You're not waiting for somebody else to give you the tool. You're making it yourself.
So how do you operationalize that? If I'm a 16, 18-year-old kid or even a 25-year-old young professional, how do I begin to understand this behemoth that is an AI model?
Yes, math. Do math.
Come on, be more specific. Like by math, like what should I read? Like how do I develop the intellectual horsepower to be able to understand what this beast is and how to use it optimally?
Okay, the first thing that I remember reading that really got me was Kate Crawford's Anatomy of AI, which she's a researcher from NYU, I think, where she looks at a lot of, looks at the entire where does AI come from, down to the nuts and bolts of what are the raw minerals that go into the production of the chips.
Oh wow.
To what are the kind of images, what are the data sets that it's trained on, right? Like, look at the entire system. All of that's going to matter. So that's where I would begin.
This is a book, Anatomy of
Anatomy of AI.
And it's a recent book.
Yes.
Okay, so it would
In the last 5 years.
fascinating.
Yeah, but and that does and the math, right? Like, there's so many courses available that tell you how does a word become a number, right? That's one of the first things I would want people to understand, because when you talk to ChatGPT, you're saying in words, but it's understanding in numbers, right? There's something that converts the number into a vector and takes it into a vector space. And then there are biases and there are relationships that are found within that vector space. A really famous example is I can convert a word into a vector. So I can convert man into a vector and I can convert woman into a vector. And those 2 points will exist somewhere in space, and there's a distance between those 2 points. When I convert the word king and queen, they are the same distance away as man and woman, though they're in a different location entirely. Does that make sense? We have never told it that there is some relationship between man and woman, king and queen. It just picks that up pseudo-magically. But it shouldn't be magically. You should understand how is that done. So then you can be like, this is maybe where this bias is coming from, or maybe where this mistake is coming from, or maybe this is a way I can deploy it, or maybe this is a way I can understand that I'm not working on the top end of AI. Just prompt engineering is great, don't get me wrong, but there are ways to go deeper than that. When to take a model and fine tune it, and when to use RAG, right? That's a basic kind of thing that I think a lot more students should know in order to know that, you got to at least be comfortable in the mathematics. I'm not saying
How advanced? So, like for students in school, I get that. But if you're a young professional and you really want to set yourself up for success, what level of math is required to understand the nuts and bolts of AI?
Well, so I have been able to teach this to young students also by just looking at how the algorithm works.
Are we talking pre-calculus, calculus, statistics, linear algebra, multivariable?
Linear algebra, a bit of differential equations for very, very complex systems. Like, for example, the kingpin example which he is giving, that just requires basic arithmetic, some basic Euclidean distance, some geometry. Even a 10th grader is able to do that, and you can do it. You can actually do it in Excel. Actually show that, and that is a very nice example where you take these examples, take this data, put it in Excel, put formulas, and just actually calculate those distances and be able to see that, hey, how close something is to something else. Right? So these kind of instructable examples which are there, which you are just quoting here, just pull out an Excel, pull out some data, search for this data, and just try to do it yourself. That I think is the right way for doing it. For more advanced, kind of AIs which are coming in, linear algebra is something which you need. Differential equations to a certain extent. So yeah, basically 12th grade maths. I don't think more. Yeah.
don't think of it like that. Just do. Every time there's a maths thing you don't understand,
Ask GPT.
search, ask somebody else. Right? You don't have to live in the box of 12th grade first year.
Got it, yeah.
Right?
Correct.
And go as far as you can go. Right? And like, don't be afraid.
Very actionable advice.
Yeah, just don't be afraid. Like, try it out. Like, there's anything. I see so many people that see an equation and go, oh. I think that's the thing that we need to change as the world becomes more foundation upon this AI. Even those who want to use it for, social purposes need to understand the mathematics that govern it. Otherwise, we would become slaves to the mathematics without understanding.
Yeah.
That's great advice. Just to round out our discussion, so you said three things. You said judgment, compassion, and what?
Care.
And care. Got it. So you think these are universally human
Yes.
endeavors?
Now, there might be a robot uprising, in which case a lot of this goes out the window.
Right, that's a bit on the foundational part. Like you expressed it through maths. Even there were certain cases where AIs were able to replicate the Bose-Einstein condensate when they were like sort of given all the access to all the lab. Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
I gotta see.
Yeah. So they're able to do that. So even in terms of like physics, in terms of say biology, there is this wonderful episode of the podcast which I love called as Radio Lab, where they actually talk about this company which made this very nice AI model and told it to create a very notorious molecule as possible, and they were able to generate the most poisonous chemicals which are known to the society right now, which are like used in like political level assassinations. They were actually able to sort of replicate that and find it. Like they just let the computer run for overnight, and then in the morning they had all those, like it arrived to those conclusions all by itself, right? So, but here asking it to do it is one thing, but making sure that the right kind of knowledge is available and you are yourself aware of all the fundamentals of physics, chemistry, biology, to actually tell an AI that if there's a new upcoming field which is coming up, AI will be as clueless as you are. And it's going to, of course, confidently tell you a lot of things, but that will be essentially garbage, right? So you have to have a very strong foundation. We came a long way from, as the computers were invented, we came a long way from having all these applied courses and, switching our gears to becoming more applied and less fundamental. That's the general, admissions, and that's general output also what we see. I think with the application part becoming a no-brainer, like quote-unquote brains, because GPT can look at an existing theory and tell you 10 ways how you can apply it, right? Since that is becoming more, more intuitive or more easier to do, this will sort of become like more foundational work will, I think, take course. And even in terms of foundations, we have not understood everything. We don't understand lots of physics laws. We don't understand how or what makes planets move, in a specific way. What stars are, why certain stars shine a certain way, why certain stars don't shine a certain way, why atoms behave the way they behave. We're absolutely clueless. There's a lot of foundational work needed to be done there. I think that is where the actual expertise will start lying, eventually.
I think this also answers or begins to answer the question about original thinking. Like if we just investigate how this machine is built, the nuts and bolts, as you said, that's one way to cultivate first principles thinking.
Yes.
And another can be like more of this theoretical work. You're right. Like I think the world is moving toward applied. Like give me a package, let me apply. Give me a framework, let me apply it. And there's a place for that, but like how are frameworks constructed?
Yeah.
And I think that exercises a whole nother part of your brain. And I think that is what young people need to be doing more than anything across fields. Ready? Maybe we pause there for today, but the first of many sessions, this was enlightening, and I really look forward to double-clicking on some of these topics more with you both. Any other last words of wisdom to young budding scientists, engineers, and leaders?
I have one. This may not be exactly the same thing, but it comes in the same lines of what we discussed about creativity. Alex Abrikoso, he's a Nobel laureate in chemistry. In his Nobel, after he won the Nobel Prize, when he's like sitting and having a sit down with the Nobel committee and having like an Nobel interview. In his Nobel interview, he's asked a question that, what is like essentially, do you think that you're lucky that you got a Nobel Prize? He pauses and then he says that of course I've been lucky. But what does luck mean? Luck means gathering a lot of information and having that information in your head all the time, trying to make those connections. And once you sort of have that with you all the time, and once you're like sort of seeking it, and once you're doing it over an extended period of time, that is when luck strikes. Luck will also not strike without that hard work, without that gathering of knowledge. So, that was way before the pre-GPT era, like way in the pre-GPT era. But I think this is something which holds very profound and very true at this moment for creativity. That gathering knowledge, trying to make those connections is something where originality comes in, something where Nobel-worthy ideas come from, right? And that is, I think, going to be the new currency in this whole rush of applications which we have, in all these applied fields. This is, I think, even those applications, but having all those information in your head, and then processing it, and then bit by bit, challenging yourself to create something creative out of this existing knowledge. I think that's where creativity and critical thinking will sort of come from.
Amazing.
I was going to say almost exactly that. Connections is the key word for me, right? Like connections. The more you know, the more you can connect. And for that, experience as much of the world as you can. Like learn whatever you can, ask questions that will lead to answers and more questions. And say yes to new experiences. Learn, yes, I will attend that extra class for no reason. Yes, I will Google what that word meant that I'm not familiar with, and then read about its origin or whatever. And you don't know where inspiration comes from, you don't know where creativity comes from, but you just got to know. You got to know as much as possible. I remember a story from when the early days of quantum mechanics, they were, this is going to get technical, but they were doing some, basically they're doing some mathematics, and they realized the mathematics needed to have non-commutating properties. So it was a situation where A into B did not equal B into A, right? Which is the kind
like
of
matrix multiplication.
Exactly.
Oh.
Matrix multiplication.
That's where linear algebra comes in.
Exactly. And at that time, linear algebra was not a super big field, and only a few mathematicians knew it. But one of the physicists working on it had a friend, he knew about it from somewhere, and he said, "Oh wait, we can just throw that in here," and that clicked, and it worked perfectly. Right? Then you just had to have that insight somewhere in the back of your brain, ready to deploy. And so for that, make connections, have experiences, and
experience is something that GPT cannot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, thank you so much, everyone.
you,
Enjoyed it.
guys.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
great. Thank you.
That's